ये गाना भी दूसरा ही चल गया है।
जय हिंद मैम।
Thank you, Shefali ma'am, for this tribute and lovely beginning.
थैंक यू मैम।
थैंक यू प्रभजोत जी। ये गाना ऐसा है, जो भी सुनता है ना वो उसके दिल के भाव बाहर आ जाते हैं, है ना?
बिल्कुल मैम, बिल्कुल, very true.
मैम शेफाली
This is
जी।
close to everyone. This is close to everyone's heart.
Exactly.
मैम शेफाली जी।
जी
नमस्कार जी।
नमस्कार नमस्कार, कैसे हैं सतीश जी?
बढ़िया मैम। 2 शब्द मैंने भी लिखे थे मैम उनकी।
हाँ बिल्कुल, जरूर सुनेंगे सतीश जी, आपसे तो कैसे छूट सकते हैं। बताइए।
शेफाली मैम नमस्कार।
नमस्कार नमस्कार हरिप्रकाश जी।
ठीक हो मैम?
जी हम ठीक है, आप बताइए।
यस मैम, अच्छे हैं जी। स्वास्थ्य ठीक है जी?
ठीक है, बेटर है पहले से, धन्यवाद।
ऑफलाइन शुरू करवाओ मैम आप, बस जल्दी से।
हमारी तरफ से तो आज से ही शुरू करवा लो, हम तो खुद ऑनलाइन परेशान हो गए हैं।
चलो ठीक है मैम।
वी आर रेडी मैम, वी आर रेडी।
कहते हो, जब मैंने ऑफलाइन किया ना तो एक भी नहीं आया।
उस टाइम पे हमने ज्वाइन नहीं किया था मैडम।
अब की बार बुलाओ मैम आप ऑफलाइन।
ठीक है, चलो फिर मार्च ऑनवर्ड्स बुला रहे हैं आपको।
ओके मैम।
अब सुनते हैं जरा सतीश जी क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं।
मैम मैंने कुछ 2 शब्द लता मंगेशकर के लिए जी।
इन्होंने लता मंगेशकर जी के लिए कुछ लिखा।
भारत रत्न लता मंगेशकर के निधन से सदमे में है देश। शवर कोकिला विभूति ने कर लिया स्वर्ग में प्रवेश। 80 साल तक सुनी सबकी आपकी मधुर वाणी, देश को सपने में छोड़ गई सवर समरा की रानी। फिल्मी जगत में दे गई अविस्मरणीय योगदान, आपको अपने श्री चरणों में स्थान दे भगवान। घर परिवार की जिम्मेवारी भी बहुत खूब निभाई, आपने 80 साल तक फिल्मी जगत में रही छाई। सवर सम्राज्ञी सवर कोकिला से पाए हैं उपनाम, युगों युगों तक कर गई अपना नाम। विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित कर रहा है देश सारा, विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित कर रहा है देश सारा। आपको सदैव दिलों में रखेगा ये भारत देश हमारा, आपको सदैव दिलों में रखेगा यह भारत देश हमारा।
वाह सर, वाह वाह, नाइस सर।
बहुत सुंदर सतीश जी।
बहुत खूब सर, बहुत खूब।
थैंक यू सर।
बहुत खूब, बेहतरीन बेहतरीन सर।
शिक्षक वर्ग से हम सब संबंधित रखते हैं और स्वर या वाणी से ही हमारे जीविकोपार्जन होता है। और इस बौद्धिक स्तर के ऊपर जिस प्रकार से हम कार्य कर रहे हैं और अपनी भावनाओं को व्यक्त करने के लिए, क्योंकि वस्तुतः ज्ञान की सीमाएं तो सिर्फ किताबों के तक सूचना मात्र तक समाहित हो जाती है, लेकिन उस सूचना को किस प्रकार से बौद्धिक ज्ञान या विकास में समाहित किया जाता है, ये
हमारे बीच में अभी डॉक्टर चौधरी जी भी जुड़ रहे हैं जी। आवाज पता नहीं महेश सर, मेरी आवाज आप लोगों को क्लियर आ रही है?
मैम थोड़ा सा स्कैटर।
यस मैम, यस मैम।
वैसे क्लियर है, हल्की सी कहीं क्रैक
लग रहा है शायद नेटवर्क में प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि मुझे भी आप लोगों की काटती हुई सी आवाज आ रही है।
हाँ जी, वैसे स्कैटर हो रही है मैम वॉइस ना, वो जो क्लियर है ना वो वॉइस नहीं है अभी। आज हल्का सा थोड़ा सा डिस्टर्ब है।
तो क्या नेटवर्क का इशू है रेनू मैडम ये, क्योंकि जो मैं यहाँ से जैसे देख पा रहा हूँ, मैं अच्छे नेटवर्क में हूँ तो मेरे पास आवाजें सारी ठीक आ रही हैं, पिक्चर ठीक आ रही है
सर। आवाज आपकी क्लियर है, थोड़ा सा वहाँ पे शेफाली मैम का थोड़ी सी वो है बस, वैसे तो हमें समझ में आ रहा है।
रेनू जी मैं वही सबमिशन कर रहा हूँ कि आपका जो नेटवर्क है वो थोड़ा सा नेटवर्क स्लो है, तो या तो अपना वीडियोस ऑफ रख सकते हैं उसके अंदर आप इन बिटवीन, जिससे कि तो थोड़ा सा ये है कि अपने नेटवर्क के आप ऐसी जगह रहें जहाँ नेटवर्क अवेलेबल हो। ये नेटवर्क का इशू है जो मैं सबमिशन कर रहा था कि आपके स्वर हैं, आपकी जो वाणी है, माँ सरस्वती का आशीर्वाद सदैव विद्यमान रहे और एक बौद्धिक स्तर को विकास करने के लिए, बौद्धिक क्षमताओं को सृजन करने के लिए लेखन भी बहुत जरूरी है। जो भावनाएं सतीश जी ने व्यक्त की, तो अपने इस बौद्धिक कौशल के लिए मैं सभी की तरफ से साधुवाद, उनको प्रणाम करता हूँ एवं आशा करता हूँ भविष्य में अपने लेखन कार्य को और बढ़ाएंगे और उत्कृष्ट स्वरूप में ले जाएंगे।
जी सर, थैंक यू सर।
सतीश जी तो खूब लिखते हैं, इनकी तो बुक भी पब्लिश हो चुकी है।
बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
और आजकल लिखने का शौक मेरे को ऐसा लगता है सतीश जी का पेंडेमिक के दौरान और भी खूब छाया है ना।
मैम भाई मुझे भारत गौरव
रोज एक कविता पढ़ते हैं इनकी।
हेलो
सतीश जी।
मैम अभी मुझे लेखन के कारण भारत गौरव अवार्ड 2022 मिले मैम जयपुर से।
बहुत बहुत स्वागत, बहुत बहुत
कांग्रेचुलेशन
सर।
थैंक यू सर।
एक गालिब का बड़ा फेमस शेर है, जिसके मतलब गालिब को अगर देखते हैं तो गालिब के जीवन की शुरुआत वहीं से मानी जाती है। हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, हर मात्र बहुत निकले लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले। यूट्यूब पे बड़ा फेमस है। और इसका जो वृत्तांत है कि जब ये गालिब ने लिखा था तो समाज में एप्रिसिएशन नहीं मिला, लेकिन जब कुछ टाइम बीत गया और कई वर्षों बाद जब इस शेर को दोबारा कहीं उन्होंने किसी दूसरे के फकीर के मुख से सुना, तो गालिब को लगा कि आज मेरा प्रयोजन पूरा हुआ है, और उसके बाद गालिब को दौर आया। बाकी गालिब की जिंदगी अगर आप पढ़ेंगे जीवन, तो बहुत ही एक तरीके से नासाज जिंदगी जी है, बहुत ही अभाव में जीवन रहा है। लेकिन यही है कि जिंदगी किस प्रकार से आपको रखती है, आपके हुनर को तराशने का जो काम करती है वो है। तो हर हाल में खुश रखिए, हर हाल में अपने आप को स्वस्थ रखिए, क्योंकि स्वास्थ्य जो है ये एक स्थिर अवस्था नहीं है। जैसा कि हम इतने दिनों से बात कर रहे हैं, स्वास्थ्य एक अस्थिर अवस्था है। अपने आप को मैनेज करना ही हमारा इसमें सबसे बड़ा धर्म है। अगर आप इस दैनिक जीवन में देखेंगे तो सुबह से लेकर शाम तक, शाम को अगर छोड़ेंगे तो आप सीजन को छोड़ेंगे तो आपके खुद के लाइफस्टाइल, आपकी लाइफस्टाइल छोड़ेंगे तो आपकी एज, आप अपने आप को कहाँ तक स्टेबल बनाएंगे। तो ये जो स्टेबिलिटी है, ये स्टेबिलिटी नहीं आ सकती है। लाइफ क्या है, बड़ी डायनामिक नेचर में है। तो इस डायनामिक नेचर में किस प्रकार से आप अपने आप को मैनेज करते हैं, अपने आप को किस प्रकार से अडॉप्ट करते हैं, उस जिंदगी को, जैसी जिंदगी चल रही है उसको वैसे ही लेते हुए अपने आप को उसके साथ ढाल के रखिए, उसके साथ संजो के रखिए। आपको वह सब कुछ मिलेगा जो आप चाहते हैं। उस परिस्थितियों से संघर्ष करने की बजाय परिस्थितियों के साथ अपने को आत्मसात कीजिए। स्वास्थ्य का यही ध्येय है और उत्तम स्वास्थ्य प्राप्ति के लिए यही मार्ग है।
डॉक्टर महेश सर नमस्कार।
नमस्कार अमित जी।
जैसे आप बता रहे थे गालिब का जो जीवन था बड़ा वैसा था, उन्होंने सर जीवन ही ऐसा चुना। देखो तो आदमी इन चीजों से दूर हो जाता ना, उनके लिए भोग विलास, धन दौलत कोई मायने नहीं रह जाता। जीवन का एक ही रहता कि अपने मस्ती में जीना।
इंटरवीन करने के लिए हमारे एक्सपर्ट बीच में ज्वाइन कर गए हैं हमारे बीच अभी। बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर।
गुड मॉर्निंग पवन, गुड मॉर्निंग डॉक्टर महेश। Good morning,
जी
doctor.
बहुत बहुत जी नमस्कार सर, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका।
नमस्कार, नमस्कार, नमस्कार।
हमारे बीच में आज के हमारे मुख्य अतिथि डॉक्टर ध्रुव चौधरी जी वो जुड़ चुके हैं आज के इस कार्यक्रम के लिए। ये हम सब लोगों के लिए बहुत ही सौभाग्य का समय है, सौभाग्य की बात है कि उन्होंने हमें समय दिया है और आज हम सबके बीच में वो उपस्थित हैं अपने एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करने के लिए, अपनी बातें शेयर करने के लिए, अपना एक्सपर्टीज शेयर करने के लिए। बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से इन्होंने जो है हरियाणा के अंदर ये जो कोविड सेल PGIMS में बना था उसका पूरा का पूरा जो मैनेजमेंट है वो इनके द्वारा किया गया और उस दौरान बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके लोगों का ट्रीटमेंट किया गया। तो ये सब सर के ही तत्वाधान में हुआ है और हम सब लोगों के लिए आज ये बहुत ही, मैं कहूंगी कि इस समय पर इनका जुड़ना हम सब के लिए बहुत ही लाभकारी है। हम इनका स्वागत करते हैं और हमारे बीच में आज हमारे अन्य अतिथिगण भी उपस्थित हैं। डॉक्टर महेश जी भी हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं और भी जो बाहर से हमारे साथ आज जुड़े हैं, सबका मैं स्वागत करती हूँ। सर आपकी अनुमति हो तो हम फॉर्मली इस सेशन को स्टार्ट करें। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। I extend my heartiest welcome to our very distinguished guest today, a special speaker amongst us, Dr. Dhruv Chaudhry ji, who is presently the professor and the chair, Department of Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine at Pandit BDS Medical Sciences, which is very commonly known as PGIMS Rohtak, University of Health Sciences. He is the alumni of the Chandigarh and PGIMS Rohtak, and he is awarded the very prestigious Commonwealth Academic Staff Fellowship in Pulmonology in the year 2009. He is the recipient of Hansraj Nayyar Memorial Award of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine for the Best Researcher and is the Fellow of the Indian College of Critical Care Medicine and Indian College of Physicians. In the March 2021, he has been elected as a Fellow of National Academy of Medical Sciences. He established the Department of PCCM in this institute as an offshoot from the Department of Medicine. Department was approved and recognized by the MCI for providing the postdoctoral training in political care medicine since 2011. Besides this, department is also imparting 1-year training in the critical care for the last 10 years. He has held various academic and administrative positions in the institute and the university. He has been the Dean, Faculty of Medical Super Specialities twice and in charge of telemedicine and IT. Chairman, Department of Accident and Emergency, as well as the Dean Student Welfare. He has served in the various capacities with regulatory authorities in medical education and has extensive experience as an examiner and evaluator. He has written more than 70 papers in the national and international journals and 55 chapters in the book and edited a monograph as well. Sir is on the editorial board and regular reviewer and the peer review journals in the chest, critical care and allied specialities. He is the founder president of Association of Commonwealth Scholars and Fellow ACSF since its inception in the year 2016, which was supported by British Council. He is the immediate past president of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine, a non-profit professional body of critical care physicians of India. Sir has played a pivotal role in the education and training in the critical care medicines in the country. He is the lead author of the position statement of ICS of COVID-19 and co-authored on transformational guidelines on tropical fever in ICU of ISCCM. In collaboration with IMA, this institution, Apollo Group that is, Hyderabad under his leadership in the training medical professionals in ventilation and management across India during the COVID pandemic. He is one of the key advisors of the government of Haryana in managing the COVID, and he has recently been appointed as a member of the Lancet Commission Task Force on COVID-19 for India. Sir is a public speaker of repute on health awareness, including the public health, motivation, ethics and medical practice, and is a believer in the young generation ability to motivate and capacity to innovate in education to make it more employable and skill-oriented, resulted in major changes in the training of the undergraduates in his institution and the state as well. Sir was appointed as a member of the task force of Haryana Governance Reform Authority on Health and Gender Justice in the year 2018 and Health in 2020. He is also the member of the task force of ICMR on making the national guidelines in respiratory disease and was also the member of the WHO and MHFOW guidelines formulation on COPD in India. He is also the member of the expert group on validation of ventilators and respiratory support systems under the chairmanship of the Principal Scientific Advisor of Government of India. Presently, he is the chair of the Ethical Committee of the Central University of Haryana and of other universities as well. He is actively engaged in the process in establishing the patient help groups to provide the succor and emotional support with the intention to have a say of people in the public health policy as well as the issues related to the patient safety. He has been recently, that is yesterday, he has been awarded with the Chaudhry Award for his distinguished contribution in the field of healthcare. And many congratulations to you, sir, for that. And he is a recipient of many awards. And we wish that the people like you, those who are contributing right and as a front workers during the COVID and all times of your years in this area of health, we wish you the Bharat Ratna for the same. And and it's a great pleasure and a privilege, and I very proudly share with all of you that we have him here today, because it's an honor for all of us to listen to him despite of his very busy schedule. He has humbly accepted my invitation just on a message. So this is the humbleness. वो कहते हैं ना कि जो ज्ञान जब बढ़ता है इंसान में और वो बिल्कुल ज्ञानवान हो जाता है तो फलदार पेड़ झुकने लगता है, तो वैसे ही व्यक्तित्व है आपका. हम आपका आभार व्यक्त करते हैं सर, और सभी प्रतिभागियों की ओर से, महिला विश्वविद्यालय की ओर से, मानव संसाधन विकास केंद्र, ये भी एक टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग का डिपार्टमेंट है सर, और अपने सभी रोहतक और हरियाणा के वासियों की तरफ से आपका मैं आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ कि आपने कोविड में जिस दौरान सब लोगों की हेल्थ को मैनेज किया है, सब लोगों के साथ उनकी जान को जिस तरह से आप लोगों ने बचाया है, जिस एफिशिएंसी जो आपकी टीम ने वहां पे व्यक्त की है, उसके लिए हम आपके हमेशा ही कृतज्ञ रहेंगे, आभारी रहेंगे. और आपका मैं बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करती हूँ, बहुत बहुत स्वागत करती हूँ हम सब लोगों की ओर से आज के लिए. थैंक यू सर. और स्वागत करती हूँ सभी हमारे उपस्थित यहाँ पर अतिथियों का, अपने सभी स्टाफ का, अपने सभी प्रतिभागियों का और सभी बच्चों का जो हमारे साथ यहाँ पर जुड़े हुए हैं. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत स्वागत आप सब लोगों का. ओवर टू यू सर.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali, for a very kind and a very liberal introduction. I don't know whether I deserve that much or not. The only thing I have worked throughout is the fashion that one should be working as a team. And I think it is ricochet हो रही आवाज.
अब शेफाली मैडम,
Yes, sir.
I will request somewhere probably 2 are opened, and that's how we are getting it up. Thank you so much. And next 20-30 minutes, I will share you with my experience. And a lot of things we did, we were not even aware about it. And what this pandemic has taught us, one thing, if you really ask me, is human resilience. I think that is what it has told us, and which has reinforced and re-emphasized. And that's what we have been learning in the history, right from the beginning. But unfortunately, we Indians are extremely poor in history. We don't enjoy it probably the way it has been taught. But aptitude, attitude, whatever of any nation, any place, any institution, depends a lot on the history. So I think it is important for us to remember that where we are, how we have reached. One can have a difference of viewpoint. One can have a differences of opinion also. But one thing one should be certain is one should be aware about it and need to critically analyze the things. I think that's the way. That's what the science has taught us. And if I apply the liberal arts in a liberal way, one of the important aspects of that liberal arts has been analytical thinking. And similarly, somebody did ask once how science has to do with the liberal arts. I think both are intertwined because both needs analytical approach, both need observations, and then on the basis of that you do and make a decision and move ahead with it. And another component of liberal art used to be the going and standing in terms of personal defense. That used to be part of it. Science, basic sciences were part of the liberal arts. It has been a myth that we are trying to do it, but nevertheless, a science without a social aspect and a social sciences without an aspect. That's why we call them as the social sciences. And these are the basic sciences. So that's how I've grown up in University Campus Kurukshetra, where we had the stalwarts. I had Professor V.N. Datta, Professor Jaspreet Singh, we had Professor Kalia, we had Professor Mukherjee. It was a very vivid, diverse crowd. And within our own things, what I have realized over a period as a child, when I go back to 70s, when we were there at Kurukshetra, I will come to this. What we used to enjoy was the diversity. Diversity from the country, diversity from the nation, diversity from the state. Unfortunately, over a period of time, that has gone away. A lot of inbreeding has taken place, and that has belonged with it. The issues in the health, which we look at it, the consanguinity brings it a lot of mutations and disorders. And I think that's what our institutions are being plagued as of today. When you talk in terms of healthcare organizations, they are no different. Because what we are, as I said in the beginning, it is our culture which makes it, which our attitudes make it, our exposure makes it. And there has to be always an intent to adapt. There always has to be an intent to learn from the evidence which is coming up and then see and what has happened in the past. Are we in the same synchronization of things that change and how we are adapting? Like all of you will agree with me, in last 20 years, one of the most disruptive things which have happened across the board has been the social media, where everything is now available to us. And that is what played a lot of role in terms of managing this particular pandemic. It had a both positive role, it had a negative role. But nevertheless, why I'm talking in terms of it, because whether you are dealing with a pandemic, whether you are dealing with the natural disaster, or whether you are dealing with or terrorism, healthcare delivery systems, and in fact, all systems are being challenged to adjust their capacities, redesign their working models, and also see to it the financial and economical implications of it, and then obviously then try to re-strategize, redeploy their staffs, etc. I think it has put if you see 360, when we talk in terms of health, is not simply looking at a disease in an individual. It also means that what has happened during this particular period on the mental health of the people, during this period, what happened on the social health of the people, what happened during this period on the economic health of the people. I think all these issues have been there. And then along with it, the decision making can be extremely complex, because if we go for a top to bottom approach, it has its own challenges. If we simply keep on listening to the bottom and don't take a decision and go into analysis paralysis, then again, we can have a lot of challenges. That's what we learned. And all what is important thing which we realized over a period of time was that the quality of any organization, I started from the cultural aspect, but equally important was the quality of leadership. If you have been able to provide the leadership, if you are able to provide and willing to accept the challenges to the established leadership, which an institution happens to be the head of the department, which an institution could be your vice chancellor, and probably of late, registrars are also become a part of extra constitutional powers. I'm sorry to say that, which never used to be. But yes, that was to administer it. I'm not saying it. And no pluses, no minuses, because I'm bringing my own 50 years of experience, which I've seen in universities that the rules have changed. And the clamor among the teachers to run after these posts rather than being selected, I think it is very heartbreaking. But nevertheless, what I've realized that if you stay true to yourself, as a teacher, I saw them, and then gradually as you grow up in your profession and you are able to build networks, you will go far ahead. And that is what we saw. If I extrapolate it or apply it to the pandemic, that is where the challenges in the leadership we saw. We came from head of the departments, it came from the head of the institutions, and also the insecurity growing up in the people who were sitting at the top, especially in the institutions, to handle that they may not go wrong. I think that is something we cannot work in a zero error syndrome. You make, you work, then you realize where you have gone wrong and you adapt to the situation. But one of the things which we found subsequently was the one, and all of us agree with it, that when uncertainty is there, we are the most jittery because we don't know what is going to happen. So that fear of unknown takes over, and sometimes the rational people become irrational, and sometimes the people whom you will never expect, they will keep cool, calm, and then they will react and they emerge. So what I am saying is this process has shown us emerging and re-emerging of new leadership, which the established leadership has to learn to accept it with humility, with understanding, and nurture them, because the future depends upon of our society, our institutions, states, and countries on that. With these things, I think when, with this background, let's say, and look at it, what happened and how we look at it, because there will be now reams of books are being coming up, reams of articles are coming up, how you look at it, how you put it, and people trying to put it into different domains. I think life is not as simple. We live in a life which is non-linear. We try to put linear models everywhere. And when you start looking at some sort of a pattern identification is the key. It is extremely important when we are making up, we need to look at our own resources, our own capacities, our own capabilities, and then calibrate our responses. Quite often what I have realized is we underestimate ourselves. And quite often there are people who will overestimate themselves. I think what is important, it has also learned is the collaborations, that you need to work, the strengths coming up together and then moving ahead. When I talk in terms of health management of the pandemic, I still vividly remember I had returned back from Hyderabad on 2nd or 3rd of March. I got a departure order from our Honorable Chief Secretary, Mrs. Keshni Anand, that on 9th of March there is a meeting in Chandigarh and you have to be there. At that point of time, I was looking after, as I had looked after being a respiratory specialist, that was my luck, and also as a critical care person, because I have evolved from internal medicine. And looking at it, then we looked at respiratory medicine, and I had just taken over as the president of the Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine, which is nearly 13,000 strong force of intensivists who work in ICUs. And that has become actually, if you ask me, the backbone of the critical care management in the intensive care unit in whole of country. And I can say with a sense of pride, probably I was destined at that point of time to take over the charge. And I was there, then I went with another colleague of mine from community medicine. And when I reached there, what I saw, very interesting thing, she had a bunch of papers in her hand and she gave it to me. Dhruv, look, this is what is happening. And what she was showing me was a peak of an epidemic. And how can we blunt it? Because if you see it, when you know floods are coming, it is easier for you. When you are controlled opening of the gates of the dam, you know it. But when a sudden burst happens, like what we saw in Kedarnath, it was a disaster. Therefore, our whole aim at that point of time when we met, and mind you, she herself has been a public health degree from University of Sydney from Australia. So it was a great interaction there with our colleagues from PGI Chandigarh. We had the secretaries of the various departments sitting across, and it was deliberated at that point of time. It was the beginning of it, and we started seeing what was happening in Wuhan, China, and every day things were being transmitted, that people dying suddenly walking, people have been staying outside, and those who were talking about it, they were being punished, or they actually died of that, the famous ophthalmologist. The people who were leading the teams themselves had COVID and they died. And when the interesting aspect is that this actually pandemic the beginning has been, the seeds have been sown much earlier, and still late, we don't know how it started. There are different theories it is there. So if you don't know, it becomes a very, very tricky business actually. And that creates uncertainty, because how it got created and how it is spreading it up. And when people started gathering data, so one of the important aspects of any pandemic or any event is that sometimes a small trivial event can tell you what is going to change in the coming time. And they looked at it, the people are coming with pneumonias, having a respiratory failure, with the low oxygen levels coming up, distress, dying within a couple of days. So they were able to bunch out, and that is where the science helped. Subsequently, it started in November, and on 31st of December, they actually gave the whole genomic sequencing of the place, and they declared to the world that something has happened, and this is a coronavirus. All of you have read it, reams of it, that basically it has rays along with it. It's a sphere with the rays, and that's why on the basis of that, it is called as coronaviruses. And we had seen 2 epidemics in this century. Earlier, first one was that of severe acute respiratory syndrome. We call it that because patients, after getting ill, become extremely breathless, they pant for their breaths, and they tend to have a low oxygenation, and ultimately this is an evidence of lung failure. And that is an acute failure of this, and people then go and develop, in which we saw people dying. Then secondly, it comes up MERS. MERS is nothing else but a short form of Middle Eastern respiratory virus, which was first detected in a patient who was a dialysis. And when they looked at the patient in a dialysis, they found out, and it ultimately turned out, when they did a standard epidemiological tracing, they found out it to be from the camel, and later on the sequencing of it was done in Germany, and they found out it was again a coronavirus. We earlier knew that coronaviruses can cause disease, and that is where we looked at it, because it is coming more like a flu syndrome, where you will have looking at, say, upper respiratory infections, etc. So considered to be relatively noxious, but we knew that it can cause pneumonias in animals. And here what we were all looking at, because the place from where it had come up, that probably it's either an incidental or accidental, that somebody got infected during the processes, when came out, then spread the infections. So you can realize that a small little a spark has created the devastation. And look at it, how rapidly it has spread over a period of 10 months. Practically we saw 1 million deaths. Today, now we are realizing in our own country, we have lost 5 lakh people. That's the official data. But numbers, I presume, to which, though as an organization, we are denying it. We are in a little denial mode. Course corrections have been done. But if you see the country, the new paper which came from one of my friends on the Lancet Commission, and when they looked at it, their data, though has been disagreement on it, again I'm saying with the writer from that paper, is around about 3 million people have died, that 30 lakh deaths have taken place in this country alone. But official figures are with us, 5 lakhs. And now, because Supreme Court has started asking for the state governments after for compensations, you will see that will be more nearer to the realism than the mathematical modeling data coming up, and people who died of COVID. But never ever forget that large number of people who died also were non-COVID patients who could not get care because of COVID. So that also adds up to the deaths. Classical death may be per se, COVID may be less, but because of that, the healthcare system got shut at that point of time. People may have died of more acute MIs, more of other infections, more of other diseases like heart attacks and so on and so forth. So combined burden you will take will be much, much higher. And that's what is the irony which we have seen, what we have faced. So let's come back to, we were looked at it, and we worked with just flatten the curve. That was the thing which we discussed. At Rohtak, we came back and we realized and we re-looked at our things, because we are the biggest institution in the state. We have nearly 2,000 beds. And when we looked at us, we only had 124, if I remember correctly, 124 ventilators with us, and which included both pediatric, adult, and when we saw how many can put into work straight away, this number was not more than 90. So that means at best, if somebody comes with respiratory failure and needed ventilator support, we will only be able to provide to 90 patients spread across that. Then the second thing which we realized is how to diagnose these cases. Because you can only treat it, yes, when it comes in epidemic, you can do it. How are you going to manage these cases? How are you going to diagnose these cases? What are the clinical signs, symptoms on the basis of which you do it? And how will you do it? At that time, there was so much of a scare, we didn't know anything. We did not know anything how to handle this sort of a thing, except that it reminded me of the movie Contagion or the Oriental Express, if somebody has seen it. But what will happen if the respiratory, because if like diseases like Ebola, we knew that they spread through the blood, they spread through the secretion. Anybody who has come in contact, that's where things have come up. But the spread of respiratory infections, people had willfully forgotten about the SARS because it was limited. MERS-CoV had come up intermittently, but again, it did not make as much of an impact on the public health and individual health. So we looked at it, we sat together, and I remember our Vice Chancellor, Professor O.P. Kalra, calling a meeting along with the director, and this so responsibility was put at that point of time. First thing which we were asked was to double the number of ventilators. So we made a plan looking at it that it is not only COVID, but it is an opportunity for us to enhance our infrastructure. So we did with that, and the government was very kind enough and they sanctioned straight away the money worth 31 crore rupees. And along with whatever we asked for, and it started moving in a fast track mode, the government of India also came up. And the first case in this country was reported in the month of February, if you see it, remember it. In the month of March, when we had it in Kerala, the youngsters who started rushing back from China. Then I also realized one thing, that how many number of our students was studying in China. Practically, I could realize it. The small area around Rohtak, we saw more than 40 people coming up within a span of 2 weeks. And then I also realized that you see, what it tells us as a part of a public health is no area is immune. A lot of people are coming through Calcutta. We looked at how you are coming through the Calcutta, because Calcutta is the port which is closest to China, if you really ask me. A lot of people from the West China had a flights of our own Indigo and other things. They were going, picking up the students and coming up beside the southeast of the China, which is their bulwark zone for economy and all. So it was an interesting information because the Kerala had suffered it. So what we did, we tried to sit, first we have to find out a space which is isolated, where we can confront the people, where we can keep the people, that's a wrong word, where we can isolate them, where it is no threat, how to go it, how to do it. So we went into the drill of wearing the thing which can protect us, that is personal protective equipment. That's how the PPE came into picture. Nobody knew how it is that everybody was seeing the pictures. So it was looking more like a space suit. That sort of thing, we have seen it in Ebola. And when we looked at WHO guidelines on it, you will be surprised. And what we were finding it, some people said, "Ki saab, it's a gunny bag." You go into it, and practically after 4 hours of it, it looked like you are floating or you are walking through a puddle of water, because you were drenched out of sweat. It was lying on their feet, and you could see your fingers and toes having shriveled, acute loss of water which was there. So we started doing it, looking at it. People were scared, and obviously we wanted to create an isolation facilities or a separation facilities for the families. The moment you started doing it, it created a lot of issues with the staff management, because the fear of unknown, the fear of taking illness to the families where your children are there, where your parents are there, was real, and it did take a toll of it, and that is where the leadership is needed, the leadership is required. Somewhere you need to put a little firm, but you need to be more receptive. You need to be more patient listener to your people whom you are working with. So we converted one full block of our private ward into a block, and then we realized we had never gone into the business of hospitality. We all know, as a doctors, as a medical professionals, patient comes, has a disease, you take. Now this time you were admitting people who were healthy. How to go ahead with it? Their needs, their demand, their requirements was there. It was looking like they have been imprisoned. If you remember the first one, what was happening? And it was a huge challenge, how to go ahead with it. Then we started providing the newspapers. Then somebody came from abroad. He says, we will not drink the tap water. Then you realize, okay, you need a water. So we started putting, before I could even realize, my consultants from their own resources had started giving the bottled water from the canteens, the branded ones. I came to know around about a week later that they have started doing it. Food, we realized, is that what way we are sending, how to give the food itself was a challenge. You are putting it up outside and then you take it up. It was trying to bring me a social rituals, which used to be earlier, the process of untouchability. We saw it for the first time, what it is. It led to that awakening that how you feel, you are untouchable. So that brings a lot of aspects. Health is not simply treating a disease. And you need to talk, you need to communicate. The people who are not able to talk, communicate to their families. The first one I remember got admitted. We tried, we experimented. We were told by the government, also by Mrs. Anand, that please give them the free internet, whatever it is. Let them use it, let them be busy. Now, these are the things which came up. We did try. Somewhere we succeeded, somewhere we failed. But we kept on adapting. And that's what we realized over a period of time. As the numbers went up over a period of time in the May, June, and again we saw that a peak coming up in August and September of the first wave. A lot of social organizations which were contacted, they came up, they started supplying the food, excellent food, which was being given. Similarly, then the testing, tracing, we worked on the principle of those who have been test, trace, and then according to that, treat. That's what the 3T which were followed. People were there, that's what you will see, people were reluctant, contaminant. At the same time, on 22nd of March, we had in our country one of the very successful, but to an extent, it was a challenge to all of us, the lockdown. We had never seen it. Suddenly, flights go away, India got itself insulated from the world. Now, it created another challenge to begin with, how to get the equipments for the diagnostics. Now, like if you remember, a pandemic which was there, but which was a relatively short-lasting swine flu, which happened in 2008, 2009, people in Pune falling like ill and dying. That is how later on we saw in other states. We also had that 2 times, but we were able to sail through that influenza. Same pattern we were seeing it, how to diagnose. So at that point of time, the government of India in 2012 had taken a decision to put the viral diagnostic research lab throughout the country. So those labs became the cornerstone for us. And when we looked at in India, in Haryana in particular, we had only 2 labs. One near to your institution, which was at that time Sarita was looking after. Another one is at our institution, which Dr. Gill has been looking after. When we had the only capacity of 250 tests a day. Today we are doing nearly 3,000 tests a day in our lab and nearly 2,000 tests in your lab. And when we started it up, we didn't know what to do, how to do, where to go. I vividly remember discussions on it, that how to expand the diagnostic facilities, because still we have the time. The orders which we placed were not coming up from abroad because of the flight, and everybody in the world was actually asking for this. So practically one thing was below the 50 buyers, jacking up the cost took place. I still remember advising the CS at that time that why don't we tap our universities? They have biotechnology departments. We have Government of India's central institutions. You will be surprised within 48 hours with 27 RT-PCR machines with us. And that is what we put it up, and then they become the bulwark for us, establishing, and today I can say with a sense of pride, because at that time only government was allowed, not the private sector. So within a span of 3 to 4 months, we were able to expand our capacities when the private sector there. Today, Haryana can easily do 50,000 tests a day on RT-PCR. Out of 22, 18 districts have the facilities. All medical colleges can do it. And today means we can upscale, downscale the things. Now you have a rapid antigen testing which has come up, RAT, which we call, but if you go to the UK or the West, they call it as a lateral flow test. So they have become available. So what we are saying is that you do a self-testing, but put it on the ICMR panel so that we know exactly what is happening. And you must have seen in this now, third wave, large number of people testing themselves, buying it from the shelf and making the diagnostics. So that is how we have, when we started, the cost of each RT-PCR was 2,100 rupees. Today, it costs you 250 rupees. Look at the substantial cost which has come down. We have rapidly worked at that point of time. So the first thing was epidemiological mapping, looking at it, creating facilities. And on the basis of that, we realized that a large number of people will not require hospitalization. A concept of corona care came up and the centers came up. Then you had the hospitals, then the tertiary care hospitals. It was supposed to be sequential, meeting it up together. But somehow we learned quite a few things that it was very difficult sometimes to get people outside the service. Large number of people initially thought it is the doctors who have to deal with. Yes, right, they're paracommandos. At that point of time, the intensive care people, but they need a supply chain. They need a continuous food, ration. You need ammunition. You need public with them. I realized ostracization be taking place of our people, our doctors, our nurses, our other paramedical staffs who were staying outside in rented houses. People wanted them to leave it. Then one has to use a bit of a strong arm technique. The government has to declare that anybody doing it will be prosecuted. But these are the real things we saw, we faced, which happened. I remember an anecdote when a young man was there. He was working, he had shifted out from my department. He met me. I just hugged him. I said, how are you? Can you beat it? The gentleman was not allowed to go into his working place. He said, you have been hugged by a corona doctor. You have got a corona. Then you really feel it. Besides food, look what you have become. Dur se everybody will say namaste. So that sort of a thing. But what I learned from this was making a team of good young people. My faculty, my junior colleagues were the backbone. The challenge to me were the senior people, not the youngsters, not the people at the middle level to an extent. And the challenge came up from the senior people, sometimes ego being hurt, sometimes the scare getting better of them, and sometimes when you wanted them to show the path. I'm sorry to say, but this is a very sharp observations that they were, I won't say no, but they were a little reluctant. Similarly, another group of patients will keep on coming up, doing it. But nevertheless, what I learned was kept on patient, listening to them. But somebody came that I have a diabetes. I said, I'm a diabetic. I'm going up. Somebody said, I have asthma. I said, I have an asthma. And it's not that I'm saying, I have both of them. Mild asthma is there from the family. I can't get diabetes. I got it because of my family genes also. I can't help it. But nevertheless, as a leader, if I run away, what I do expect? Can I expect it from? Answer is no. That's what we did it. And when I got it the first time, uncertainty was there. I still remember 3rd of June. I signed the order on that day, requesting, and the government was very kind. On 3rd of June, I remember writing it up for the home isolations for the first time. Earlier, anybody who is diagnosed will be put into the hospital. And 4th, I got myself tested, turning out to be positive. I was feeling a little fatigued. My daughter was, who herself is a doctor. She had a fever, so I put my foot on, you are not going. She got annoyed. She fought with me. I said, you're not going anywhere. You first get it checked. And when they got it tested, I said, test me also. And I was positive. And then I looked at it. I had a mild fever, but nothing much happened and walked away. But that also brings us to the therapeutics, remdesivir, which was there. You will be surprised how collaboration help works. People across the country, my colleagues, and from Bangladesh, it was sent to us. It was available there. I received it for the 2 ones and used it finally on one of my colleagues. We never realized you worked very hard in Gurugram. Malik Saab, आप जरा करेंगे, म्यूट करेंगे अपने. Thank you. So he got it. Now he has undergone now bone marrow transplantation. We realized that he had some blood disorder, but that's what saved him. Then we got into different trial modes. I'm telling a story and then I will tell in the end what we learned. And then at the same time, tocilizumab, you must have all heard about it. It came. And Vedanta was doing a trial with the Roche. So I called Dr. Singh, who is a celebrated specialist. I said, we want to do the trial. He says, Dhruva, we have already closed. I said, nothing doing. We are doing from our side. How you do it, put it as we did it. And we did that trial. And that got published now in Lancet Infectious Diseases. And we provided the maximum number of cases. We worked into it. We used on it. And we learned our lessons. When to use, how to use. So the timing became an important issue. How quickly you look at it. And what we advocated last time, I can say with a sense of pride and satisfaction, more than that pride, satisfaction, and with all humility, is that the way we use remdesivir has now been endorsed by the word now, putting in all guidelines, use it early rather than using it late. So that's what is now changing the management of the things which has over a period of time. But what was very important for us was how can we provide the safety gear so that my faculty, my colleagues can get confidence. That was the challenge. You trust me, we sat it, we looked at it, and with the help of one of our colleagues and a friend, Dr. Who was heading the Department of Critical Care Medicine, Sanjay Gandhi, Lucknow, the guidelines which we had given, the government has given it, the WHO given, which was for Ebola. Very thick one, nothing can move in, nothing can move out. And we had realized now that this disease is spreading through the droplets. Now, the common sense says which will spread through the droplets is likely to make me aerosolized, which spread through the respiration. So we realized that N95 masks, face shield, and we need to have a cloth which can actually breathe. That is important if we have to save our people. And central oxygenation supply, so air conditioning was stopped. You realize 20 patients, 3 residents or 2 residents and 5 nurses at any point of time minimum, which ideally would require 20 nurses, 50 people in that place, no ventilation, nothing. What will happen? They will get exhausted. They will get died in 4 hours. So you have to reduce the shifts. So when you reduce the shifts, other thing, it would started affecting your capacity. People will fall sick also. That will further reduce it. So your capacities were challenged. People are falling sick, and then you have to give people on duty to put them off duty minimum for 7 to 14 days till the new shifts come up. So naturally what was happening was, if the staff was 100, practically functional staff was only 40. So it increased. So that is where the technology came up to our help. We started realizing the EICUs, that okay, we will do EICU, electronic ICU, that will magnify the thing. We started looking from nurses and the doctors from other specialities. Some of them, they came willingly. Some of them, they put an example that this is what NMC has said it, this is what the ministry has said it. But nevertheless, we try to keep a balance. We have to go, any area where you will go, everybody will have a resistance. You need to discuss, you need to talk, you need to talk. That's why I say the culture of an organization comes into place. So that's what had happened. People will run away, some were very enthusiastic. How you are operating emergency, that has to go a complete turn. My colleague, Dr. Naveen Malhotra, who is the Secretary of the Indian Society of Anesthesia, 30,000 strong. He, Dr. Smriti Nanda ma'am, who is retired now, she was heading the gynae. You can do anything, but the child will not wait. A birth has to take place. Then people were dying. How to take care of them? Now, gradually the guidelines did come. Guidelines are basically not, they are helping you out. Then you have to adjust and adapt it to the local level. Dead bodies were being given. They're being shifted to the crematoriums. Then if a different religion, they have to be sent for burials. Each day, who will take it up? Who will go? Scare everywhere. And the television channels totally bombarding negative things into your bedrooms and drawing rooms. It overtook over it. Mental health issues became a problem. Counseling became important. So these are the issues which we faced, which we challenged. And I realized very early, and coming from the uniform background, my father was a police officer. My brother is an army officer. My grandfather was an army officer. My chacha died in 62, was second lieutenant, national bantamweight boxing champion. And we all realized it. One thing my mama fought all 3 wars, A lot of my cousins have been different decorated soldiers. I realized only one thing from them talking to them. It's an ambush. What you need is a resilience. What you need is a composure. What you need is a calmness. If you have to break this ambush. The same principles, you need enthusiasm, but you don't need a knee-jerk reflexes. You need a positive approach. You need a calibrated, deliberate approach rather than running around from it. I think this is what we learned, and that is what we carried over a period of time. And we created and we realized that oxygen was an issue, even at that point of time. Second wave, all of you have seen it. What happened? It's not that the doctors were not there. People say your system collapsed. I says no. Our system got overwhelmed. There is a difference in a collapse and overwhelming, because collapse is then when you run away. Nothing is there. We were all trying to work. 3 weeks, there was a huge chaos. I don't deny it. But at the same time, I think we fought it back. And I salute my younger colleagues, especially the youngsters, the way they manage the home care. Now the home care has come of an age now, which we would never have thought in terms because of the help and support of technology, of the social media. And then we also realize if you practice non-evidence-based medicine, the pitfalls of it, what you can have it. So you need to have an evidence. It is then need to move ahead. Fear cannot decide what you are prescribing. And then later on, once we were recovering, we had an epidemic of a black fungus. So I think there are different phases. The first phase was phase of preparation, because uncertainty was there. We were not available. We could only see in Italy, the northwest, which was one of the most rich areas, prosperous areas of Italy, being Milan and Milano and all that area, being ravaged. We saw New York being ravaged. The way after way they have to do it. So we faced that farm, not in phase one. When we were all alert, we tried to blood. And the second, we were all looking at it that probably we have won. It was euphoria. So it also tells it that stay calm, stay calibrated, keep your eyes and ears open, keep your senses open, look at it, what is happening. And what we know today, what happens in Europe 6 to 8 weeks down the line, we do face the same. What is happening in US 6 to 8 weeks down the line, you look at today, Omicron, the same thing is happening. That's what we saw. And please listen to it, that the technology has come up. It will keep on telling you the new variants. All of you are from the basic sciences will realize one thing. It is the cost. Viruses will mutate. Like it's not, the word is not for us. It is for everybody. Therefore, they will mutate. They have to stay. They have to survive. Therefore, look at it, read it for information purposes. But my problem with the communication strategies is the way it is being projected, it creates panic. Because sometimes it looks like it's a fight for TRP. I think it should not be. Because that is what we realize, the communication is the essence. Communication is the key. Whether it is the patient talking to their families, whether the teams talking with each other, what we learned during this was collaborations, communications, adaptability, resilience, and along with it, ensuring, having a faith and trying to help the community through the commune moves through which we are going. People are trying to put it up in a different perspective. But nevertheless, some are trying to see it from the perspective of if you really ask me, people are trying to look at it in terms of looking at it as an organizational issue. Yes, it is. But it is as much in a policy challenge. You look at it. We are all looking at a health management. What about education sector? I'm surprised that the kids from 5th onwards, we don't have a resource. They cannot write. They cannot now, 5th class, can't write, can't read. You look at your own institutions. You have adapted by online platforms. Is it a replacement for offline teaching? Answer is no. We may have to go with a hybrid mode. You look at the people who have got trained. They have created a problem. Therefore, what is important, it's a challenge not only for the healthcare sector, it is an eye-opener for the government to realize it. And we have managed this crisis. We have created new leaderships which have come up. But what is very important is that the way we have gone into that saga of preventive medicine now, the vaccination program, the way it is there, the way India has evolved its own system. If we would have depended on the West, we would not have got anything. we still would have been struggling. Therefore, what is important right now, the lessons for me have been, besides what it is there, like education, it's totally in a mess. The teachers have to come out, they talk in terms, they have to say, okay, we will do it. It is also challenging us the way we are making our buildings. We all were very happy with the air conditioning things. We need to look at the ventilation. It is bringing up the concept that I cannot ignore animal health any longer. Somebody wrote about it. I saw the message coming up, One Health, One First patient declared in Canada, because they're in the extreme areas where they're seeing the problems coming up because of increasing temperature of the world. We are seeing it in terms of disaster in the environment, in terms of flash floods, in terms of flash environment, etc. So the extreme temperature, you see 44, 45, extreme colds. Very minimal rain. When the rain occurs, it occurs in the burst. And suddenly water going away. So my point is that when you start looking at a health management perspective, I just talked to you from how from an organization we went, how as a government thought in terms, and then we realized that large number of mega cities in Haryana, Gurgaon have no infrastructure worth the public sector name. What you know, if you talk to about anybody, it is Medanta, it is Artemis, it is Fortis, it is other hospitals. Can a common man go there? It has brought down the disparity, inequality among the society. Government tried to cut the costs. The private sector found out that it is not possible for them. The first wave's fear was so much that all hospitals became closed. Where the people will go? In the second they worked. When they earned money out of it, people made sure that they're making money out of it. No organization will work without any money. Point I'm saying is, putting it to you, the different viewpoint perspectives which are there. As a policy, we sailed it, kept it up. Now we are seeing now in terms of disputes coming up because large number of our people can't afford. Insurances were difficulty, to even TPS sanctioning were difficulty. Medications cost, the tocilizumab cost 35,000 rupees. In the government, we provided free. In private sector, you have to pay. Remdesivir, we provided free. In the public sector, you do it. I was given an ominous task of chairing the state committee on tocilizumab distribution. Can you beat it? The plight of us, 160 injections for whole state of Haryana, which includes every patient hospital and how to decide whom to give, whom not to give. Then got 80 more, 240. Admission hospital requirement, if you look at it, was around about 1,000. Whom to give? For the first time in my life, I did it, which I never did it. We have already disaster principles that after 70, nobody will be given. We did it. It may sound unethical, but when you are fighting a war, when you are in a disaster, we always categorize first 2, 3. First one, which are too little ill, they will recover. Too sick to be saved, they will provide them comfort care, take their pain, relieve their pain, but put your resources to 2 in the between. We got the guidelines, we looked at NHS, it was a great savior. It shows us how our research can be done and how you can come up rapidly with evidence, which we unfortunately lack except for the plasma trial. It exposed the basics of our teaching institutions, our institutions. Let's accept it. It showed us the lack of research culture in our institutions across the board, be it health, be it otherwise. How many of us who are sitting in this program and look at the social impact? How many of us have looked at it that it has an economic impact? How many of us have looked at it as an impact on the employment? How much it has impacted the effect on the education? These are the questions I'm asking you because all of you are educationists coming from different places. So talking about healthcare without talking, these have no meaning. Health is a multidimensional thing, which we need to look at it, and only then we can move it up. Has anybody of us started program? I remember that people, the help who are working at my house, which stay outside, they had 1 phone, 3 children. How the online program will go up? Have they the cost which is there? The schools have to run, they have removed their teachers. In the Medanta, I know it, and they were not blamed to be. Sorry for taking that name, but let me put it up. All of us in the government were not given DA because government has to prioritize somewhere. So in real time, even your salary went down. So somewhere we have to rechannelize the resources. People who were not taken away, their salaries in the private sector was halved. Because that was the time phase where your resources were diverted, you didn't know what to do. And today, if we have to move, I think if you really ask me, it's easy to criticize. But still, governments were adapting, they are learning, they were as at unease as you are. Nobody wanted that their people should suffer. But at the same time, you need a data, you need an evidence. It is you, me, who have to provide the data and evidence. What is applicable in Tamil Nadu may not be broad principles will be there. Our cultural issues are entirely different. So when you look at it, that's why I was reading an article which said simple rules such as underlying values and culture norms help to ensure that agents and units react to change in a timely and a coordinated manner. I think that is very important. Relatively broad guidelines or constraints are imposed on the system from the top down, so that agents and units have substantial autonomy to respond to change. I think that is the key. That is the key. They said the guideline. Guideline is fine. But end of the day, local level, they're telling you how to act. But your actions are your own. You have to take. So you have to develop leadership. You have to develop teams. It has told us to work as a team. It has to work in collaborations. What I realized the biggest challenge in the healthcare, in the medicine we found out, was two different specialities, because especially in the teaching institutions, because they're all so rigid hierarchies are there. They need to go if you need to work. That's what we learned it up. And then with the vaccination saga, it is bringing it one thing more. The basic sciences, clinical sciences, social sciences, and other things have to work. Why social sciences? Well, say vaccine hesitancy. It will become, I will become infertile. I will become this thing. I will become that. Something will happen. My genes will change. Mutations will change. Cancer will happen. Now, all that myth has come up. So please, when you're communicating, communication, health strategies are as important an issue as anything else. I think that is very important. So what you do, what you did is important. Can you able to communicate at the level at which people can understand in a proper way without creating a scare, without creating a doubt is the key. So healthcare management has shown resilience. It has shown deficiencies. Education system has shown part one, but I think time has come where we need to look at it. And as a teacher, I am a teacher too. My mother was a teacher. She brought us up. And if you look at the people, they have faith in yourself, had pride in your profession, and stop running after, I'm sorry to say it, please don't take it mind, running after the positions administrative in your universities. You can shape, you can mentor the future of this country, this state, the institution. I think that is the key. At certain level, it is important to go into that also. But what I feel very sorry is, I'm sorry to say it, and I don't mince words on it, I've seen people who have excelled in the profession, have far more ethical, moral values, and have respect than the people who are heading the institutions. So be true to yourself, be true to your profession, and then probably see to it how you can do it. And when it comes to healthcare, every single citizen, every single person has a huge role to play. Doctors, nurses, and paramedics are only the tools through which you can work. But end of the day, the greater policies of nutrition, employment, women, child health, mental health, that makes the difference. And today we are seeing that the technology is coming up. We had a great delight and pleasure working with Mr. Puneet Ranjan, Chief Executive, International Deloitte, where we came with the integrated command control models from the PHCs, rural dispensaries down it. We did it in Karnal for COVID when it was going up. And probably looking at in your university, you can look at telehealth is the future now, digital health is the future now. But nevertheless, nobody can change and replace the human touch, the cuddle of a mother, the love and affection of a father. Nobody can replace, no health can replace it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
It was really very enriching and enlightening on the issues that has taken place in our country during the this pandemic period of time. And still we are coping up. But as you have said that we have already scaled up with the facilities in the times, and we have increased the number of the tests we were doing initially, and also worked on the cost efficiency parameters. It has been so brought down to certain extent, to a very large extent, in which a common man can also afford and can be cured. And a lot of things, a lot of myths which are surrounding us, they are also being now addressed to. There were a lot of takeaways from you, like the creation of the facilities, isolation, like the hospitalization, not only the hospitalization, but also the hospitality that you have given to the admitted patients and to the isolated, not only from the national citizens, but also to the international citizens who were here in the country and who were coming to our country. So a lot of things have taken place, and your journey and your experience is telling us what, as a common person, we should contribute and we can contribute at this period of time. At least we should not go around with the myths, and we should not create the doubts. And we also help the other people in solving out these matters, at least as a part of this social community. And also, we have to be more collaborative, we have to be more communicative, we have to be more... we have to come with work with a more resilience. So all these parameters we require, and we have to work in collaboration to establish a health management system in our country, which is still lacking. And we are not even at the basic of that level. We need to work on many aspects like nutrition. We have to work for the women, then for the children as well, and for the mental health and for the social health of the society. So we can work together in the collaboration. We can think of all these parameters which the sir has raised to establish a research culture in our country. That is very much desirable. And of course, आप अपना काम सही से करते चलिए, पीछे पीछे दुनिया अपने आप ही पोजीशंस लेके दौड़ पड़ेगी, पर काम के अंदर जो डेडिकेशन है, जो कमिटमेंट है, वो चीज हम सब लोगों के बीच में होनी बहुत जरूरी है. वी हैव टू बी ट्रू टू अवरसेल्व्स एज द सर हैज सेड. तो हम सब लोगों को आपने बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से गाइड किया है, बताया है, बहुत सारे अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस शेयर किए हैं. क्रिटिसिजम्स तो करना बहुत आसान होता है, पर मुझे ऐसा लगता है reaching up to the level of criticism is also very difficult. वहां तक पहुंचना भी बहुत मुश्किल है. और वो लोग सौभाग्यशाली होते हैं जिनको क्रिटिसिजम्स तक पहुंचने की भी जो है ना, वो वहां तक पहुंचना भी पड़ता है और पहुंचते हैं. वो लोग सौभाग्यशाली है. That means they have contributed. And the jealousies and the professional jealousies and all these things are the part of our life as a human nature. And only those people face it जिन्होंने कुछ योगदान दिया है. तो उस लेवल तक पहुंचिए कि आपको भी क्रिटिसिज्म सुनने की नौबत भी आए, तो वहां तक भी पहुंचिए. तो आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करते हैं सर हम. और बहुत सारे प्रश्न भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स वैसे हमारे यहाँ पर रख रहे हैं. इफ यू कैन टेक 1 or 2 out of it.
Yes, please. I will do 1 or 2, and then I have to leave for the OPD for an hour because there is a meeting of 12:30 of ICMR. So, हम बताइए, मैं एक बार चेक
कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं सर कि क्या ये क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से आया है या नेचुरल अकरिंग है, क्या हो सकता है इसके अंदर आगे, क्या इसके वर्जन्स और भी आएंगे?
I said it, that virus will mutate. It will mutate. And probably it is going to become an endemic, and it will become one of those sardi zukam with some odd people getting pneumonias. So we need to be careful about it. Remember one thing, this earth, this universe is for everyone. And what Darwin said, it's survival of the fittest, is bound to be there. That's what is important. Climate change has brought its own issue. And climate change is for real, let's accept it. If I remember from my childhood, I can see with mid-80s, we started seeing some changes in weather fluctuations. And what else you can see it in April, May, when you see the change of the weather. The extremes of summers have gone up. If you see, people initially thought that we are just talking about it, and as a country, we will be suffering a lot because A, population, and secondly, for the economic activity, we still depend a lot of carbon footprint. Europe can talk about they use, they misuse, they abuse. Now they are trying to preach others, but at the same time, it's a delicate balance which has to go. For which I think what is important is One Health is an issue now. We are talking today One Health where environmental sciences has an important role. You look at your old buildings. which were there. Today, everybody wants a smaller heights of the walls of the roof. Everything air conditioned. Weather has changed. We are seeing much more incidents of allergies, other things. So whatever you are doing has an impact also. But COVID, whether it is because of global warming, I don't agree. But short of that, what is happening is, you can say indirectly, because now human life is coming much more contact with the animals. Because we are taking away the jungles, we are taking away everything. Large number of us are keeping pets at home, other things at home. So they can also transmit disease, and we can also transmit disease to them. In the COVID, we saw that people gave it to their pets. So I think it's both ways it can work it up. But what is important is, if you take care of your environment which is there and try to use conventional wisdom of using natural resources. I think easy broadly to say about it, but difficult in the today's life the way we are using it. Today all we are talking to get rid of carbon footprint. Tomorrow you will have a problem with the electronic goods. Already we are seeing it. Then you will have batteries. You see, they are an answer for us. How you will take care? Like, I have not talked about medical waste disposal. How will you take care? Same way, anything you are there, any action will lead to waste disposal. That is why for the Sustainable Development Goals, which WHO has talked about, which UN has talked, Assembly has talked about, we have all party to it. We need to follow it, and health is one parameter, another is environment. That's why now the time is to talk more and more about One Health, plant health, animal health, your health, environmental health. All things are now coming up together. So that's why even the Government of India did talk about One Health institution. But it's a time, you look at it, large number of, I can see one of my friends from West Bengal, where fish is a staple food. Similarly, you go to any areas around the coastal area, fish or the seafood is there. If you have a contamination in the food chain, they will enter into you. Similarly, the amount of insecticides, pesticides we are using is coming to mother's milk. It is all coming to the food. इसीलिए हमारे पुराने लोग भी कहते हैं जैसे आप खाओगे वैसी आपकी सोच होगी. तो इसीलिए अगर आपने कहानी सुनी होगी कि आपका जिसको करना है तंदुरुस्त रहना है, स्फूर्ति से काम करना है, तो कहते गाय का दूध पियो, मूंग की दाल खाओ. सुस्त रहना, उड़द की दाल खाओ, भैंस का दूध पियो. पुराने लोग कहा करते थे. तो वो एक कन्वेंशनल विजडम ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम दे हैड सीन इट, एंड वी हैव एनेक्डोट्स लाइक दिस. So we need to learn from that. And the conventional wisdom, if you see any societies, they have their own cultural milieus in which they are working. Please always take in that account. If we take in that account, if we simply learn to our Vedas and Vedic Shastras, I always say they were far more closer to the nature than we are today. आज हमको सिर्फ कहने के लिए नहीं कहना है, हमको उस पर अमल करना है. And you know what I am saying.
जी, very true, sir. बहुत ही अच्छा आपने बताया सर. लास्ट प्रश्न, जो लोग इससे अफेक्ट हुए हैं फ्रॉम द वेरियस म्यूटेटेड वायरसेस, हाउ दे कैन नाउ टेक अप देयर पोस्ट कोविड मैनेजमेंट, 1 or 2 tips for that, and is black fungus still affecting the people, those who have been affected with that?
First thing is the post-COVID thing. A lot of people are complaining and coming to us. We are going to do a study which was postponed because of Omicron with Lancet. We are going to look at the symptoms of post-COVID syndrome in 3 districts of Rohtak, Jhajjar and Gurugram. Sonipat is just kept a reserve as a part of it if we have. So we will be doing it in 2000. That is the first part. Second part in this is that yes, a lot of people are having symptoms. What earlier we used to call as a post-viral fatigue or post-sepsis. That what we as an intensivist, as a person working in intensive, we used to see. Same thing is now seeing is much larger scale because much larger number of people have been there. So you can have a body aches, you can have lack of energy, you can have breathlessness, you can have a cough. Then you can also may have sometimes blood becoming clotted. Then you need to look at it. So there are multiple things, and then we are seeing a post-traumatic stress disorder because it has impacted people, their behavior, their conduct. I simply say that take it in your stride. Look positively. First thing is that I have survived it. One. Second is that I will come out good. Probability that you, because this is a smoldering inflammation going at persisting, which will take another 3 to 6 weeks on an average, 6 weeks plus, and then they will go. Breathlessness is a constant feature in those who have a significant lung involvement during the time. Or sometimes what we are seeing is functional defect stage. But what we are seeing as the time passes away, in 10 to 15% it's staying back, especially dominantly where the lung has been bad and they have recovered, but rest it also can go. Similarly, my request to anybody who has got COVID is don't be suddenly try to become a athlete of the first order. Wait and watch. We are seeing cardiac involvement in 4 to 5% of cases. When they do a very vigorous exercise, immediately they land up in a trouble. So we gradually built it up over 6 to 8 weeks. Classical example, though it is not correlated, is the postpartum patient, where we say, when the ladies deliver, we say gradually go back to your work, and we say 6 weeks, that is 36 days. You look at the conventional thing, the Japa thing, which goes up to 40 days. If you see it, that's when the hour was done or something, or different societies, different religions, different cultures, different. But look at the wisdom, the science, what we have realized is 6 to 8 weeks is a good time. And what conventionally people have been following is the 40 days. So that way, when the body is injured, before it's an elective surgery, please don't get it. Wait it for some time. Except, like, because we realize in second wave itself that tissue is not healed completely. It takes time. आपके हाथ पे चोट लगती है, फ्रैक्चर होता है, अपर लिम्ब में 6 से 8 हफ्ते लगते हैं, पैर में 12 हफ्ते से लेके, पर नॉर्मलाइज होते हुए टाइम लगता है. बिकॉज बॉडी रिपेयर कर रही है, तो रिपेयर कहीं भी चोट लगेगी, कुछ होगा, इन्फ्लेमेशन हो. कईयों को लो ग्रेड फीवर चल रहा होगा, कॉजेज एक्सक्लूड कर लीजिए, बिकॉज इसके अंदर टीबी का हमें कोई इंसिडेंस दिखा है और चीजों का इंसिडेंस दिखा है, क्योंकि लोग अस्पताल नहीं गए डर से. तो वो एक आपको ध्यान रखने की बात है. जहां तक ब्लैक फंगस की बात है, ये पहले भी आती थी, अब भी आती थी, लेकिन वो एक पर्टिकुलर पीरियड के अंदर बहुत ज्यादा उसका इंसिडेंस मिला. और इस समय भी परसों ही बात हो रही थी हमारी एनटी के अंदर, तो इस समय 4 नए केस आए. तो वो केसेस डायबिटिक्स है. अगर डायबिटीज कंट्रोल नहीं है, जिनको गुर्दे की तकलीफ है, रीनल फेलियर है, उनके अंदर हम कॉमनली देखते हैं. और ये अगर आप रोटी या आप डबल रोटी या कोई और नमी वाली चीज छोड़ दीजिए, नमी वाले दिनों में आप देखेंगे उस पे कई जगह तो हरी हरी फफूंदी हो जाती है और कई जगह काली फफूंदी हो जाती है. तो ये काली फफूंदी, ये राइजोपस, समटाइम्स एस्पिजिलस निगर कैन बी देयर, बट बाय एंड लार्ज दिस इज व्हाट इट इज. सो ये आपके एनवायरनमेंट में है, लेकिन बॉडी में उसके अगेंस्ट रेजिस्टेंस है, रोग प्रतिरोधक क्षमता है. लेकिन जब आपका डायबिटीज है, स्टेरॉइड अब्यूज किया आपने, डायबिटीज किया, immediately. So please, for God's sake, do not do self-medication. 1. Do not use star-popping antibiotics on your own. We are seeing huge drug resistance. If we continue with that, in another years, we will go into free antibiotics. So please, इसका सवाल आता साहब, मेरा गला खराब है, एजिथ्रोमाइसिन तो खा लिया, बताइए क्या करूं. एजिथ्रोमाइसिन आपकी बैक्टीरिया के अगेंस्ट काम करेगी, वायरस के. सिंपल ट्रीटमेंट है, स्टीम लीजिए, गरारे करिए. अगर डायबिटिक नहीं है, देसी हेल्दी रिलेशनशिप में है बॉडी की. और इसीलिए जब आपको उसको रीबूट करना हो, तो आपको खाने में जो चेंजेस बताई जाती हैं, वो इसलिए बताई जाती हैं कि जो आपका अंदर का जो इंटेस्टाइनल हेल्थ है वो इम्प्रूव कर जाए. इसी तरह मिल्क से एलर्जीज बड़ी कॉमन मिलेंगी आपको व्हीट से एलर्जी बड़ी कॉमन मिलेगी आपको. वहां पे हम कहते हैं आप चावल ले लीजिए, बाजरा ले लीजिए, रफ जो सा कोर्स सीरियल्स है, they are found to be effective. So there is a value in that observations, but that observation today, that evidence today has to be put in a proper perspective. We are all for Ayurveda. Nobody is against Ayurveda. I think somebody talks about is all nonsense. जब आप बीमार होते हैं, सबसे पहले माँ क्या करती है, कोई चीज वाले में हल्दी डाली, दूध में ले लो, हल्दी की आपने पुलटस यूज कर ली, दे आर एंटी इन्फ्लेमेटरी. एलोपैथी में वी नीड लिटिल मोर साइंटिफिकली प्योर प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं आपके पास. अब आजकल कईयों को खांसी चल रही है, नहीं लेते, हम कह देते मुंह में मलट्ठी रख लो भैया. लिकोरिस इज द एल्कलॉइड. उसके अपने प्रॉब्लम लंबा रहते हो तो उससे बॉडी का मेटाबॉलिक एल्कलोसिस हो जाता है, पोटेशियम कम हो जाता है, बीपी बढ़ जाता है, साइड इफेक्ट आता है उसका अगर आप लंबा यूज करते हैं। इसी तरह से आज के दिन अदरक है, लोग अदरक भून के थोड़ा नमक लगा के मुंह में रख लेते हैं, खांसी होती। शायद अदरक हम पहले करते थे। यानी कि आज भी एंटीस्टेटिक एंटीबैक्टीरियल प्रॉपर्टी इतनी बढ़िया है कि लोग प्यूरिफाई करके अब इसको कई बारी कैथेटर्स के ऊपर लेप लगा के डालने की बात कर रहे हैं। सो पॉइंट आई एम सेइंग इज ऑब्जर्वेशंस आर राइट। द ओनली थिंग इज वी नीड टू टेक आवर नॉलेज बैक, बी प्राउड ऑफ योर पास्ट, लर्न फ्रॉम योर पास्ट, लर्न फ्रॉम योर मिस्टेक्स, correct them, move ahead. Even if you fail, you have learned something. That should be the message. And there is no fight of allopathy with Ayurveda, Ayurveda with allopathy. I think this is more a fight for livelihood than actual science.
Thank you so very much, sir. It was indeed very insightful again. We must appreciate our indigenous knowledge, and we have already conducted this STC on that indigenous knowledge base. And we are trying to include number of sessions in our training programs which revoke this indigenous management systems and indigenous knowledge systems of our country. And we must take pride into that. With that, we very proudly thank you, sir, for being with us and for honoring us. It was a privilege listening to you, and your experiences have given us a lot of insights, like how we have to manage and we have to support the this health system of our country in what aspects. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you.
I look forward to meeting you sometime.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
तो आप सब लोगों ने अभी सर को सुना, और मेरे को ऐसा लगता है उनके एक्सपीरियंसेस से आपने बहुत कुछ अपने बारे में भी रियलाइज किया होगा कि हम लोगों ने भी ये जो इडियट बॉक्स को सुन के अपना दिमाग बहुत परेशान किया, तो बहुत कुछ इफेक्ट्स हमने अपने अंदर खुद के अपने एक जो ये प्रेजुडिसेस बनाए हैं, जो अपने बिलीव्स बनाए हैं, उनको भी तोड़ना बहुत जरूरी है। एक चीज उन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छी बोली, उन्होंने कहा कि स्टे पॉजिटिव सोचो और हमेशा ये सोचो कि आई विल कम आउट ऑफ इट, मैं इससे बाहर आ जाऊंगा, है ना। तो ये सोच रखनी, कभी भी अगर हमारे पास कोई भी मेंटल या फिर कोई भी फिजिकल इलनेस आती है, उससे कोप आउट करने का ये बेस्ट तरीका है, बिकॉज आवर विल पावर इज समथिंग जो कि हमें हर प्रॉब्लम में, हर एस्पेक्ट में हेल्प करता है। तो आई होप यू हैव एंजॉयड। 1 and 2 पार्टिसिपेंट्स कैन शेयर देयर फीडबैक एज वेल।
मैम, जैसा कि सर ने बताया और फील भी किया होगा, जो सर ने नोटिस किया कि वी मस्ट क्लोज टू अवर नेचर। उन्होंने आयुर्वेदिक कंसेप्ट्स को अप्रिशिएट किया और जो आयुर्वेदिक लाइफस्टाइल्स थी उसको प्रमोट करने की बात की कि वी जस्ट नॉट ओनली फॉरवर्ड और रीच टू द एलोपैथी हॉस्पिटल्स ऑलवेज, वी जस्ट नॉट ओनली ट्राई to get rid of these things or always blame that these are non-scientific measures, but somehow he emphasized on these things that we must encourage ourselves in our lifestyle, in our diet measures, and somehow incorporate our ancient wisdoms, ancient practices. And this is a practical aspect, and I'm proud to share here that the STC on health and nutrition, as I tried my best, we have fully focused it on the alternative measures and somehow making aware a population regarding these things. And our motto is to create an awareness in the society, not to cure the disease, but to create an awareness regarding the prevention of the disease. So this is an authentication session. We authenticated our all sessions that whatever we had made or we had tried is a scientific procedure, and the efforts in which the efforts made by the government and the healthcare agencies are all in the same directions. So somehow there is a need for the collaboration of the pathies. It is not necessary to take every time a paracetamol tablet, but somehow a glass of warm water is also beneficial to cure your headache. So with the permission, ma'am, if you would like, if you will allow, we will close this session here.
जी, कौन बोल रहे हैं जी?
सभी पार्टिसिपेंट से रिक्वेस्ट है कि जो STC वाले हैं, दे कैन स्टे इन द प्रोग्राम, एंड जो इससे इतर या अलग जो फैकल्टी मेंबर्स हैं, प्लीज लीव एंड ज्वाइन योर शेड्यूल्ड प्रोग्राम्स